What's up, everybody? Welcome to the La Lita Loca Cruise podcast. And man, I'm excited. I have, it's funny. A lot of times I'm just looking forward, and very rarely do I look back. And sometimes you realize some of the best things that happen to you in life are in the past. And so I have a guest today that just by happenstance yesterday, we reconnected. I think I first met this guy back maybe 1991, 1992. We were both young guys trying to make our way in the world, and we found ourselves intersecting at a fine dining restaurant in what was then the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. And but now both of us do stuff when it comes to travel. So I'm very excited to welcome the guest today, Chuck Cinelli from Nashville, Tennessee. Chuck, man, it's weird to see you as an old man. You still look as young as ever, but I'm old. I'm old, and so I'm thinking back to our days when we worked at the Old Hickory restaurant.
Oh my God!
Our uniform of the day
was so hot.
Tuxedo. Yeah, we wore tuxedos, and our hair it was black. Both of our hair.
You had the bow tie. Oh yeah, exactly.
But you know, now you have an interesting story. So, and always an interesting story. Let me ask you this first: how long have you lived in Nashville, Tennessee? Has that been your home for the longest?
Yeah, so far the longest. I grew up in Schenectady, New York, but been there in Nashville since 1989, 90. And my first job was at Opryland, so my only job I ever had. I've always been self-employed before and after that.
That was such a wild scene, and I don't want to say that it set the stage for thinking internationally, but you know, I just got that job by accident. I went to a job fair, and the guy that was the maitre d' who ran the restaurant, Peter Hundred, a guy from Holland, a Dutch guy, he just grabbed me out of the crowd. He said, "Hey man, do you want to come work at this restaurant?" And I was like, "Yes." And I didn't have a lot of experience, and so he was from Holland, and then we also, there were folks there from Afghanistan, folks there from Iran. It was a very diverse crowd that definitely had you thinking worldly. And how did you end up at that hotel? You just applied there too. How'd you end up in that restaurant?
Same thing. Had a casual friend, and his girlfriend worked there, and she said, blah, blah, blah. Well, she worked at the restaurant next door, Rachel's. Yeah. And Rachel's Kitchen. So, she told me to apply, and that's how it happened. And then once I got to Rachel's, they just seemed to have more fun over at the Old Hickory, so I quickly tried to slide over. But, Peter comes into my restaurant.
Really?
Peter. Yeah. I've been thinking about him, and I can't wait to tell him, because we'll talk about old times and who we've seen and things like that. So,
man, I have such fond memories of Peter. Please send him my regards. Yeah.
Of course I will. Yeah. He was the best. He took care of us.
He was a great
We probably
guy.
should have been fired every month if we could have been fired. We were so stupid and young
it was
kids.
Definitely a different time in the early 90s. That restaurant was an all-male crew, and it was toward the end, I think we did pick up a female server, but it was pretty jocular there for a while. It was I definitely have fun memories of being a part of a bunch of dudes. The restaurant.
It was a 4-man team, and it was international style. It was only supposed to be men, because the chef was from Germany, he was from Holland, and so.
One of the great characters of that restaurant was a guy from Iran named Essie Azizi. I'm sure you remember Essie, of course. His story is so interesting because he came to the United States to do some work when revolution happened in his country. The Shah was deposed, and he couldn't go home. So here you have a guy that all these years later is in the U.S., but oddly enough, he's a pilot, and
he took us up in the airplane. A couple
it was only
times.
like 10 years ago. I was standing in line at a hotel at a resort in Vegas. I think it was the Paris Hotel, and all of a sudden I hear, "Cousin, is that you?"
Oh my
I was like, wow, I saw Essie so many years after, and it was just random in Vegas. But so we move on, and your path is really interesting. I can tell from your path, and I even knew it at the time. You're into food, you're into travel, and so you go from the restaurant, and that's when you open the coffee shop, right? You open a.
Remember that?
That's your first.
That's correct.
On Ellington Parkway or something.
Elliston Place.
Elliston Place. That's it. So you go from the restaurant. That's right. You go from there to the coffee shop, and I can't remember how successful or unsuccessful that coffee venture was.
Well, I was there for 25 years. So my mom and my aunt came down to help me, and my family owned Italian restaurants. And then next thing you know, there's lines out the door. We were open for 24 hours. We had a music venue in the back. We had a 7 a.m. happy hour for the third shift nurses because we were around 3 hospitals. It was so much fun. And, you know, only a young man could do this. Now it's just like, but great memories. So then we had the lunch business. We did delivery. Then in the evening, blah, blah, blah. You know, we were between the hospitals and the university. So then the students would come in, you know, Wi-Fi showed up. And then in the evening, we had a stage in the back. I built an annex with a bar. And so that was a whole nother business. And it's very successful. And lines out the door every night almost, you know. So, and then, well, now Ellison Place has changed so much. There's really no restaurants there anymore. So that's a long story, but
there's a high-end steakhouse across from there, right? Like, was it Jimmy Kelly's?
That is still there, Jimmy Kelly's, and they just expanded.
That's a staple, right? Like, or a long-time restaurant there.
But the Gold Rush is gone. The 2 restaurants on the corner are gone. The pizza place, that one's gone. Obie's is gone. Now there's one around the corner. Wow. There's one other bar. It's not. Elliston Place was the place to go. All the kids went there. The Exit Inn was there. You know, that's famous club since the probably early 70s. And, you know, that even closed for a minute. It's just the neighborhoods have changed and things have drifted away. I sold it like 3 times. Nobody could really run it. But by now, it's just not. It doesn't have the vibe anymore or the people. Yeah,
Nashville's changed a lot. Every time I roll through there, you know, I think we're gone 10 years now, and my wife, the lovely Jenny B, she has a great way of reminding me how much our house is worth since all of the.
I know.
She's like, hey, you know that house that we sold? Guess what it's worth now? I'm like, I don't want to know what the house is worth now. I'm very happy where we're at, but Nashville's changed a bunch. And then I think it was like during the same time that you were doing the coffee shop, you start the Italian market, Coco's Italian market, right? How long into the journey do you venture out into the Italian market?
Gosh, I've had that for 18 years. And I did have the 2 together for a while. And it's funny because as Elliston Place, that neighborhood went down, and both times people told me I was crazy to do a restaurant. My neighborhood where the Italian market was kind of sketchy. Now that's regentrified and crazy expensive and all full of restaurants and very expensive homes. I feel sorry for young people now. You know, it's just the prices of housing is crazy, especially in Nashville. But so the Italian market has been there for 20 years. I took it over from a friend of mine, actually. And my family owned restaurants and when I grew up. I don't know if you knew this, but my dad had an Italian restaurant and a kind of like a classy bar. My uncle had a very popular Italian restaurant, and my grandfather owned a building, and he was a barber in the building. And then in the evening, he had a pizza shop. Oh, wow. So I hope he brushed off, but so there's always food around, you know, and both sides of my family are from Italy. My grandmother helped everywhere on both sides. It was just, you know, I didn't realize what a wonderful childhood it was. You know, looking back, it could never be duplicated. You know, just how it all happened and where it led to. You know, but you're right. I always loved travel. Anytime someone said, let's go somewhere, I just grabbed my toothbrush. I was ready. You know, that kind of still had that in me.
It almost, so the restaurant ownership almost seems like a natural progression. And then just for context, the coffee shop's kind of near the Vanderbilt area of Nashville. And then, but the west side of Nashville is where the Italian market is. And to your point, we used to live out that way, kind of in Bellevue. And where that market was definitely a challenging neighborhood at the time that you had it, but continues to be on the comeuppance. I've been to that market a couple times. I was trying to pinpoint how long ago, but it's probably been 10 or 15 years since we were there. And it's really this market that, you know, we're getting to the point where we're going to talk about travel, but the jumping off point, I think, for what you're doing with travel now really is this market. And when we say Italian market, this is you going to Italy and sourcing great products for your market. What was that like? Was that always the plan when you opened the Italian market? Did you know, hey, I've got to go to Italy to get the best products, or was that an evolution? How does one do that?
Well, you know, growing up in upstate New York. There's Italian markets everywhere. And then, this long story short, my mom is still with me and helping me. And you come down to Tennessee and there's just no Italian purveyors. I would literally drive a truck up to Pennsylvania is about as I'd have to go, or Chicago sometimes, but St. Louis, and just to get provisions because there just were no Italian suppliers. And I went to the fancy food show in New York City, trying to make connections. I met a guy from Sicily who had an export business, small business, just a couple employees, and they exported every fall, after harvest time. And so, I started placing orders with him, and then I'm going to kind of ramble on like a long story, but then he would come to Nashville and visit, and I was like, how do I convince people? Like the salt, for example, I always use this example. The salt was $11 for a tablet of salt. And it's like, well, but it's the flour of the salt. It's from the Sicilian salt flats, and it's the top of the layer of where, so this guy Massimo, has a couple acres with a windmill, and they pump in the seawater, and then over time, it dissipates, and then he rakes it, and his wife packages it, and his daughters put stickers on it. It's like, how do I tell the stories? Like, this is why the salt's so, expensive, but it's delicious. It melts in your mouth and blah, blah, blah. And it's like that for all sorts of products, like all through Italy. I've done like 3 buying trips with, his name is Giacchino. And, but, things weren't moving. And this was really kind of before the Food Network and the cooking channel, and I had to really educate people. So Giacchino would come and visit. He wasn't doing anything. He's just busy in the fall. And we would do cooking demos and dinners and blah, blah, blah. And then people were like, oh, this is great. It's like, and I was making videos too, like trying to explain, like, here's Enrico, and they have 5 plots of land in the mountains in Calabria, and, and then they all bring it here and whatever. And I'm making these videos, and everyone's like, we should go, like jokingly, we should all go to Italy. We should all go to Italy. And you know what? That's what we did. We just rented a van, and Giacchino and I drove around, and come to find out it was very illegal. Like, what we were doing, like no insurance. It was just like friends, customers. And then we did that a couple times. And then one day, I think I tell the story. I don't know if I told you or not, but a friend of mine, he is an IT company, and Giacchino and I put a nice trip together, 3 generations of family, and it's just a big trip, and it's $40,000. And he's like, hey, can I use my credit card, my Southwest, get some points? I'm like, okay. And I swipe 40,000 on my restaurant POS. And I'm like, what am I doing? What if something happens? That's when it really hit me. It's like, I pray every day, lighting a candle, that this trip goes smoothly, nobody gets hurt, blah, blah, blah. And so that's when I kind of learned, it's like, I better really figure this out. So, but that's the impotence of it.
I do love that story because, the outcome of that, sometimes what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? So you got your friends. Hey, we see you going to Italy all the time. You're bringing us all these great experiences right here in Nashville, but we want to go see the experiences in Italy. And you're like, I can do that, but there's really no formal way for you to do that. And I love the point that I talk about insurance a lot, because there's countless examples of people who travel without insurance, and it turns out to be a bad thing. So fortunately, that first trip for you worked out well. So the way that it goes on from there, you got the market. It's thriving. You got people coming and learning, and now you got people that want to travel, and you're like, okay, well, how do I make this into a viable way where you can host people on travel? And so you partner with a 105-year-old travel agency in Italy. Is that where this company's located?
Well, first I started in Nashville with a very reputable company, and again, I wasn't doing it to make money. I just wanted like a free trip, and so we did a few with a travel agency, and then that travel agency got bought out, and they got rid of their leisure department. And the girl who does leisure said to me, he's like, I made X number of dollars in commission off you alone. We should start a travel agency. And, for 1 year before COVID, we had a thriving travel agency, not just with my travel, but she had a lot of clients. Yeah. And she's still in travel, but she had moved to Memphis. And but we're probably going to get back together. We're talking about it. But yeah, so now I am like a group leader. I will like sign a contract with a couple different companies, saying I promise to get X number of people and whatever. And then I get a free trip. And if I want to make money, I can sell the other free trips. After I get so many people, I get a free trip. Yeah. So obviously I go, and then, but more often than not, my wife goes, my mother-in-law, my mom's been at least 4 times with me, if not more. So these free trips really, everyone loves them. They keep encouraging me to go to Italy because.
Yeah. So. I was going to say, so it sounds like really your motivation, because you have the thriving business, really the motivation of being a travel host is just your love of traveling, your love of going to Italy and sharing that with people. This is great. So like on the cruise experience, we go on cruise ships. A lot of times we'll book excursions. We might have a host for one day, and that host, they're great, but they don't really care about us. They don't know us, anything like that. And so as I got deeper into your story and watching what you do, it's very appealing because you become a full host for, and this is small group. This is the reason that you can do it. What I gleaned is you try to travel with just 20 to 24 people. You get to know each of those people before the trip, and you basically curate this whole experience for the group of 24. I love the idea that you said, hey, I have a bus that maybe seats 30, so everybody's not crammed in there. You've got extra space. Is this really the appeal? And how do you source people for this? Is it basically through the market? You say, hey, I'm doing a trip to Italy. Let's see if this would be something that you would like to do. And I know you've expanded to other places, so maybe break down what the current offering is and really what it's like to go on a hosted trip with you.
Okay, well, the process, I guess you could say, like, I had several inquiries today, and I just send this and, hey, thanks for thinking about traveling with me. I send them a video on what it's like. But let's see, how's the best way to answer that question? So I do meet you before you go. I have to make sure that you can physically do it, because I've had some people show up and they're not going to make it. They think, hey, Chuck's going to take care of them, but that's not the case. Then I'll refer them to a cruise, possibly. Like, they have gentle cruises for Viking, things like that. The other thing is I gotta have to like you. I mean, do I want to hang out with you? That's another criteria. And then it's really turned into, I don't want to say I vet people, but I'm not going to lie. I do vet you a little bit, and you got to be fun. You got to be someone that, I want to hang out with and get to know more. And, they're excited. I love how excited people are to go. Some people have never been to Italy. I'm going to jump ahead. I go all the time now, and I know everybody there. There's no place I haven't been to. Everybody knows me. They're all expecting me. I've made great friendships. In fact, I just ran to Dick's Sporting Goods so I could buy the local teams, to give T-shirts away and things like that. Everywhere I go, I bring little Jack Daniels bottles to represent Tennessee, and that's been fun. And now I have to get the nicer bottles because I've become even closer friends, like the ones that are single barrel, whatever. It's getting expensive, all my friendships. And they love my groups because we're very well prepared. So I meet you, I ask a lot of questions. Some people, and help pick the right tour. Have you been to Italy before? Like, some people like, Chuck, if I'm going to Italy, I got to go to Pompeii, or I have to do Tuscany, or I have to see Venice, so we kind of do that. And then, we sign up, and I communicate with everybody monthly. I've got like this, because there's like, hey, you better decide on insurance by this day. You have to decide if you want this excursion. Sometimes there's an excursion or not, and I need to know the numbers. Like, say if we're going up to Mount Etna in a Jeep, they got to know how many people are going to be there. They got to have the right amount of Jeeps. Same thing with a hot air balloon over Tuscany. Dinners can be a little easier. We can do those when we're there. But so, there's certain deadlines, and I don't know. Then the other thing we do is we meet at the restaurant. And if you can't make it, because I'd say 25% of the people now are not from Nashville. But one of the fun things to do is we all meet at the restaurant. My mom makes a buffet. We have an open bar because I have a separate party room. And I go over a 24-page, I wish I brought one with me, 24-page guide of what to expect and just suggestions, how much money to bring, electronics. I try to tell you how to pack. My favorite page is if you buy olive oil, 3 bottles of wine, cheese, meat, and I just do the food, not even like ceramics or boots or leather. It's going to be 33 pounds. And what I'm trying to do is like scare you into packing light. And this is, so, I go over all that stuff in that 24-page thing, spray your shoes, do this, your phone plan, how much money to bring, ATM machines, download these 3 apps, that kind of stuff. So we're all so well prepared. We have a photo sharing app that's private. And then so while you're there, I'll have you fill out 20 questions about yourself. Fun stuff. Born and raised, pets, kids, your first celebrity crush is my favorite question. What are you binge watching now? That kind of thing. Your favorite music, what karaoke, what gets you on the dance floor. And so my wife puts a booklet together of all the guests. So now they're flipping through the booklet. It's like, so-and-so loves this football team and this one played, banjo and I play guitar and all that stuff. So and soon there's connections. I've had people who didn't even know they were like kind of loosely related, show up.
Oh, wow.
Or they've been to the same parties and weddings and it's great. Or worked at the same company, never knew each other. And then we also, instead of wearing name tags, I take everyone's picture, I make a little laminate that fits in your pocket, and it'll have, Tony, Chuck, whatever. So that way, because I used to do that. I called it the little cheat sheet. I want to remember everyone's name. And it's like, Chuck, who was I just talking to? And I'm like, I don't know. She plays bridge, I play bridge. It's like, oh my God. So I pull up my little cheat sheet, and then they're like, give me that, and then now I make a cheat sheet for everybody. So these things have evolved into like fun. Like, it's just, you're so well prepared and everyone has such a great time that, it's the same thing has happened where people before the trip's over, they're like, hey, Chuck, we all want to go to whatever. And that's where like the Ireland thing happens. People have traveled with me now 2, 3, 4 times and they're like, okay, now we're going to Croatia, and it's like, make it happen. Next thing you know, that happens. We have a safari coming in a couple years. We're all going to go to New York City next year. I'm going to drive a van. I'll go visit family, but that way they don't have to pack. They can go shopping, and I'll just drive the van back to Nashville and stuff like that. So it's just become it's just kind of been fun and grown out from under me, and it's consumed me, and I love it. It's what I do all the time. So
I do love this story because, I think what a lot of us are yearning for, at least when we're traveling, is some confidence and some, that once you get to a place that you're going to be able to navigate it. And I love this idea of a hosted trip because, just in the little bit that you've explained there, it's so comforting, the things that you are doing. And I'm assuming that the people definitely, that's why they keep coming back, because they feel that comfort. Because a lot of times when you travel on your own and you're making your plan, it's hard to navigate a country that you're unfamiliar with. And you can do as much research as you can, but sometimes without having somebody that's been on the ground. It's also, the other thing is I watched the video that you produced talking about what you do, and I recommend that video. I'll leave a link to that video in the description here. I would have everybody check it out, but it's very Bourdain-esque on some level. If you watch those old Bourdain shows where all of a sudden he walks in and he knows the person that's making the mozzarella, and it's all of a sudden, in your video I see you like, oh, there's a guy, and I know this guy, and we're now, at this guy's house or something like that. So it's a very neat experience. I tell you what, Jenny and I have been perusing everything that you're doing. Like, could we go on one of these trips? But to your point, we're not in the best shape. So I was like, I wonder how many how many miles these guys are walking a day. Like, it looks like you guys are putting in some miles when you're walking around Italy. That kind of thing.
that's like an individual thing. So we have a tour manager, an Italian-born tour manager, and I have several, and they fight over me because they love my groups, which is a big compliment too. And but it's not hiking. You're not wearing hiking boots. You don't have the sticks, and all that stuff. You're meandering. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, look at that. It's like, now look at this. And doesn't that smell delicious? And take a picture. We're going to go back there for dinner, that kind of thing. It's not, and then if you're tired or you're like, hey, that's it for me. It's like, that's where I come in. I'll sit down with you. We'll go to a cafe. We'll get a coffee, a pastry. We'll get a drink or something like that. It's like, hey, at 3:00, be under this statue of Dante. That's all you need to know, that kind of thing, like on your free time or something like that. So it's not that bad, but I understand what you're saying. It's funny too, because some people have gotten so healthy. They're like, I cannot believe it, between the clean food and the fresh air and the walking. I'm like, keep it up, and I've had some people who have never been healthier since they came back, and they saw the lifestyle, they saw what you have to do. And, it's, that's been satisfying too. Just to your point,
that good Mediterranean living. I tell you what, COVID did a number on us in a big way. We're still coming back from that when it comes to it's like, oh, we can be outside again. Maybe we should exercise. I don't know, but yeah. So let's do some tactical stuff. If you're taking someone to Italy for the first time, where should they go? What's 2 or 3 things you got to do if you go to Italy one time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because some people, or they're wide open, or they, Chuck, you tell me kind of thing, or they're the ones that would be like, when I think of Italy, I think of the Florence, that kind of thing. So there's the whole best of Italy kind of stuff, Rome, Florence, Venice, kind of what everyone should eventually visit. And it can be done, but you're hopping around a lot. And again, nobody's disappointed in that. And I do that all the time. I have 2 of them. One is like a best of Italy, and the other one I call the Reflections of Italy. One just starts in the north and goes down, and the other one starts in Rome and goes up. Both are great. They're a little different. One includes the Lake District, Lake Como, and things like that. And the other, a little more of Umbria, which is a Tuscan experience right below Tuscany. Umbria is great. Then some people are like, when they think of Italy, they think of Tuscany and the rolling hills and the iconic colors and the trees lined driveways and stuff like that. So, and then the biggest trip right now, and I'm doing them 5 times in the next 2 years, is Sicily. I go from Sicily to Matera, which is the top of the boot, the heel of the boot. Then we go across to Amalfi and stay in Sorrento, and then we fly to Rome. And back to your point, like if you've never been to Italy, Italy is intimidating, like for the first time. I mean, you're not going to die, no one, gets in trouble. But I always tell people, if you're going to go to Italy, after you're with me for 5 days, you kind of got it. It's all the little things. Taxi cabs, tipping, ATM machines, how to order, where to find bathrooms properly, things like that. So, and it's all the little stuff that you can't really, you can watch YouTube videos and it kind of prepares you. But when you're with me, just the confidence, me and my tour manager, after 5-6 days with me, you're fine. You're good to go.
You're ready to do it.
Again, the biggest compliment is like, they just love our way of travel. It's like, they don't have to carry a suitcase. Oh my, you ever hear the rumbling on those cobblestones of all these people with those suitcases? The only time you touch your suitcases into the airport, out of the airport, and that's it, there and back. But yeah, we take care of that. The porter service is really important, because you cannot get coaches close to some hotels. You got to get out of a coach and into a smaller truck or a van. And same thing with your bags. We just, it's not just the bags, just people just love the way we travel. It's I don't know how to even describe it. It just became a thing, the small group travel.
Pretty cool. So certainly you've spent a lot of time in Italy. Do you still have a travel bucket list? Or what are some places in the world you'd like to get to that you haven't got to yet?
Well, it's funny because it's my daughters who are 9 or soon to be 10 and 13. Now they want to go to France. I've already been to France. I'm going to France. They want to go eventually to like the Orient, which I think would be really cool because that's a culture unlike anything we know. You've been. I've not been there yet. But, where we go, Western civilization started there. And it's very important. The Greeks and the Romans and our way of laws and thinking and architecture and road structure, it's all there in Italy, from the Romans to the Renaissance. And that's America. It's actually kind of like an American pilgrimage. People don't think of it that way, but sometimes you get the geopolitical aspect of it too, and you're like, wow, you recognize things that you didn't expect. But if I went to the Orient, that would be so cool because that's just flipping it upside down. So.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to cruise to Japan after flying into Shanghai, China, and that was the first time I'd ever left North America. What a culture shock. But Japan's one of those places I definitely would love to go back to. But to your point, sometimes with cruising you're very limited in getting to a place. So we made port one time in Le Havre, France, and I had the opportunity to take a 4-hour bus ride into Paris and have a meal at a Parisian restaurant and just drive around and look at stuff. It definitely was unsatisfying, but satisfying in the same sense that I've been to the Eiffel Tower, I've seen the Arc de Triomphe. But I just drove past the Louvre. I'm like, oh, the Mona Lisa's over there somewhere. I need time in the city. But building on what you were saying, when I was in Paris, I was like, oh, now I understand why Washington D.C. looks the way it does. The architecture came from there, right? Jefferson brought these ideas you knew that intellectually, you'd read that in a book, but now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it. And I think what you're saying about going to Italy and really recognizing America in it is interesting. It's very interesting. I remember after I'd gone to the Netherlands, and then the next time that I was in Aruba and Curacao, I'm like, oh, I understand why Aruba and Curacao looks like this because it was colonized by the Dutch. So I love travel for that aspect because so many things that we only see on TV or read in books all of a sudden become real in a way that it's usable, right? I mean, it is usable out of books and on TV, but when you're actually in a place and you experience a thing, I'm one of those people. I had a cruise that was supposed to go to Naples, and I was going to go to Pompeii, and I'm ready to now take that into my consciousness. I know what it's like in pictures and books, but I'm ready to see it there. So, it's interesting. The reason I wanted to have you here today after seeing what you were doing is really to present my audience, cruisers, with a different style of travel. We love, cruisers love going on cruise ships, and we love the things about cruise ships. A lot of cruisers like to book their own cruise, and they like to make their own plans. But I think there is an immense value in being able to go to a country with somebody who completely knows what's going on there and really curates this wonderful time for them. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. So I don't know. Again, I was already talking to Jenny, like, oh, maybe we got to get on one of these trips. I want to go to Ireland with Chuck. What would Chuck be like in the wild? Because again, it's multi-layer for us, right? Because again, we knew each other as young men, right, with big ideas. Right. And we would talk about things like the philosophy of life and those kind of things. So it would be cool to be out in the wild. Look, thanks, Chuck, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk about this.
It's my pleasure.
And the cool thing, a lot of this started in Nashville, but what you're doing is not Nashville based anymore. And so if one of these trips where it's completely immersed, curated, where somebody takes care of you from beginning to end, the Chuck would do it for you. And they're doing trips all the time. You have a website, Destinations by Cocos.com, Destinations Italy by Cocos.com. It's got all the information on all the trips. You also have a website for the Cocos Italian market, and there's some great videos there. Anything else that you'd like to say that might give people an idea or encourage them to try to travel this way?
Well, first off, come see me. You know where the restaurant is. I always tell them we have our own exit. If you're on I-40, either way, you get off the exit and there's our restaurant. So, I'll throw you a meatball sandwich into the window or something like that. But no, come see me.
It's a great place. Anybody that's near there in Nashville, go to that Italian market. It's fascinating there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we do bake our own bread, and we make gelato and fudge and all sorts of stuff. We make the chicken cutlets
you still have the bocce courts in the back? You still have the bocce courts?
The two bocce courts. Yep.
Yeah.
And I got to say, like my favorite part of the trips now is just having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, bottles of wine with people and getting to know folks. There's nothing more satisfying than, but to me, just the connections. And every night I can walk to the restaurant. I live so close. Every night someone's texting me, "Hey Chuck, I'm here. Hey Chuck, I'm here." Every time I come home, I tell my wife I got 25 new best friends, and which is wonderful. So that's been the best part about it. And if you want to, if you're interested or curious, just shoot me a text or just keep following us. And I love cruising too. I've been on MSC twice, an Italian. I chose the MSC because they have a certified Napolese pizziola on board. They have Lavazza coffee, Vendi chocolates, and they even have Italian lessons on board on the MSC. I think they they cruise out of Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, they've made a pretty big inroad. Of course, they started primarily as a European cruise line, but they've been in North America for a while. They're getting ready to have a big debut in Galveston, Texas next month. Galveston's one of the bells. Yeah, well, it's an old ship, but it's going to be the first time they sail out of Galveston. Galveston's really been getting a lot of cruise business. So yeah, they have multiple ships here in North America. I just went on their newest, the MSC World America. They really some of the best pizzas. They know how to make bread and pizza on that cruise ship. They have an Italy on that MSC World America, the famous Italy restaurant. So I was able to try that. MSC is a big player in the cruise space. So you've been on a few MSC, and then is one of your trips coming up? I saw like a little cruise ship with the Croatia trip. Is that a small ship?
That's a very small. I actually have one room if somebody wants to do that. I have 19 cabins on that one, and so we do Croatia. It's not cruising. You're just hugging the coast. You dock every night, then you go have dinner. It includes breakfast and lunch kind of thing, and an excursion every day. But it's not cruising how we know. And then it ends 3 days in Venice, which is great. Oh, wow. Venice is one of my specialties. I just actually wrote a little booklet on Venice, just because I've been there so often, and just to share with people. No, Tony, it's just fun. Hey, do you remember we went to see Adam Sandler together before he was famous?
I do remember seeing Adam Sandler. I didn't know so that was my big thing when I was 18. Comedy was such a refuge for me, and I used to go to Zanies as often as possible. I love the fact that I remember very distinctly seeing Adam Sandler. I didn't realize that we were there together, so that was
we were. We went to Zanies at least twice, if not 3 times together. So
I was always that was always my place of choice when I was younger, because I had aspirations. I was like, maybe I could do this. Yeah, we saw Sandler.
Well, now you're an entertainer.
I thought maybe he was. I think maybe he was just early on Saturday Night Live. I think that's why he had some notoriety. But that Sandler show, he was nice too, because I ran into him in the bathroom that night. I don't know if I remember I told you that story.
Yeah, he shook our hand.
He shook our hand, right? He was super cool. The other memory that I wanted to bring up is I feel like it was great working at the restaurant. We had it easy in many ways. But do you remember the hardest day on the restaurant was that Sunday brunch double? I think for a while when I first started, I was your busboy on that Sunday brunch double.
That's right.
Man, I've worked some hard days in my life, but those Sunday brunch doubles it was like we were
especially coming off Saturday night. Saturday night was always a busy night, and then had to be back like at 5 a.m. to start at 6. Good memories, and you got to be young to do that stuff. So.
It's definitely a young man's game.
Do those doubles. Yeah.
Well, Chuck, so grateful to talk to you.
I could talk to you for another hour, quite honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Some other time. Yeah, I can't wait to see you and come down to Florida, or next time you're up in Nashville. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Chuck, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow, I'm still grinning from that conversation. It's probably been 2 weeks at this point since we had it, and we've talked a couple times since then. I certainly want to encourage you, if you would love to have a nice, curated travel experience, small group, go to Italy with somebody who knows people in Italy. I don't think there's a better option than with my buddy Chuck there. I'll leave the stuff in the description, the links, everything, so that you can get connected. And then he's also doing, like you said, a tour to Ireland. And after talking to Chuck, we've had a couple conversations. Maybe in the future, there's something that we do together where not only you would have Chuck as a host, but I would be on the trip too. So there's no definite plans there, and that really wasn't the intention of the conversation. But it does seem like there is a a good connection there between us still, and that I definitely would love to travel with Chuck. So thanks again to Chuck for spending the time. Thank you guys for listening or watching. This presentation exists in both of those forms. If you like the audio, you can get it wherever you get your podcast, and if you like the video version of a presentation, you can see this over at the La Lita Loca Cruise podcast YouTube channel. Would encourage you to like and subscribe and do all the things, follow in both of those places. Thanks again, Chuck, for joining the show, and thanks all of you guys for being here. This is Tony for La Lita Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.